Hello, everyone, and welcome to EcoPsych EXP, where we take a stroll through the forest of eco-psychological themes in video games. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Casey Edgerton, and I am a doctoral candidate at Veritas Graduate Institute. My core message is that video games can and do foster ecological empathy and combat apathy and doomism. I love video games, and I see them as a force for so much good, and I hope that this always comes through in these videos. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce the incredible game developer I was fortunate enough to be able to interview for this episode, Petros Lales. Petros is an interdisciplinary artist based in New York City. He received his MFA from the School of Visual Arts in New York and his BFA from the Athens School of Arts in Greece. He is the recipient of the Gerondelis Foundation Scholarship, the School of Visual Arts Paula Rhodes Memorial Award, and the Alice Beck Odette Scholarship for Exceptional Achievement in MFA Photography, Video, and Related Media. His work has been presented internationally, and right now he is working on developing the game White ANASTASIS. He was gracious enough to speak with me about said game. Let's dive in. In White Anastasis, White Energy Solutions needs your help to restart their factories and bring power back to the real world. Explore wild lands, fix broken factories, fight enemies, and discover who you really are. White Anastasis presents a journey of environmental protection, but through destruction and personal reflection. How do you see this contrast between destruction and healing playing into the broader narrative of ecological crisis and regeneration? He replied, "Many harmful actions are taken with intention, frequently rationalized by a perceived duty. For instance, a farmer might clear forests to grow more crops and support their family. In a similar vein, companies may focus on profits at the expense of sustainability, believing they owe it to their shareholders. Additionally, some environmental harm arises from unrecognized destructive behaviors, such as high electricity usage, plastic overconsumption, and excessive water use. In White Anastasis, the real world has been devastated, pushing humanity to the edge of extinction. In their quest for clean energy, they have developed a paradigital ecosystem that allows them to harness vast amounts of energy to rejuvenate and sustain their world. Players step into the shoes of a worker tasked with investigating disruptions in energy production and reactivating the factories that harness the power of the digital realm. This anti-hero narrative allows players to confront the repercussions of their choices and embark on a personal journey toward redemption. The game features a digital ecosystem that players must interact with in order to restore energy to the real world. In what ways do you think this paradigital ecosystem reflects real-world ecological systems, where both the visible and invisible forces shape our environment? His response? The game features 5 different ecosystems: grassland, desertland, waterland, swampland, and skyland. Each one of the ecosystems has distinctive creatures that reflect the natural mechanics and environment of these lands. Similar to our world, there is also a weather system that enhances the feeling of a lively, breathing world. For optimization reasons, there will be no real-time simulation of life, birth, growth, prey-hunter mechanics, but there will be a series of pre-designed scenes with animals in these situations. The fundamental similarity we encounter in the White Anastasis ecosystem and the real world is the environment's permadeath. None of the player's destructive actions will be reversible, leading the environment to a massive exploited state. Your work often blends mythology and identity. How do you think these themes are explored in White Anastasis, especially through the protagonist's journey to uncover who they really are within the context of a broken world? He replied, "Mythology is a core element of the human psyche. All of our actions are results of conscious or unconscious decisions that were once formed through a story. This could be the story of our childhood, a story we embraced as we grew up, or a political propaganda that was too convenient to question. The game intentionally gives the player no identity. We are to take a nameless role and succeed in our duty. The use of spoken or written language is intentionally left outside the game, and we are forced to use body language and symbols to progress. This decision aims to create an unspoken bridge between the player and the unfamiliar environment they are sent to exploit. White Anastasis introduces 100 unique creatures to discover, but there is a particular animal throughout the environment that is the most socially developed. These animals are called Monkos, and they are responsible for giving the players a sense of purpose that his company had never thought would be possible. The game invites players to repair critical installations within a cybernated environment. How do you view the relationship between technology and nature in the game? And how can this dynamic inspire new ways of thinking about sustainability in both virtual and real worlds? Petros replied, "The philosophical question that triggered me to work on white anastasis was whether the real world is worth more than a digital one, because value is not only determined by personal beliefs, but also by the environment we inhabit and everything we call home. The tribes of the Amazon rely on the forest for their way of life, whereas the urban population often depends on the degradation and exploitation of the forest for their own industrial benefits. The industrialization of our world is one of the main causes of environmental destruction. But I want to believe that we are at a turning point with nuclear fusion leading the way to a clean energy future. The gaming industry has its own share of catastrophic effects on the environment, but at least we can create new narratives that can educate people through interaction and immersion." White Anastasis challenges traditional hero narratives by offering a journey of reflection rather than a simple save the world trope. How does this approach encourage players to engage more critically with their own roles in environmental destruction and restoration? One of the first things players do in White Anastasis is eliminate every creature they encounter. However, this instinctive behavior often brings about feelings of regret or raises questions about its necessity. One player felt a pang of sadness after taking down a group of pum-pumps that were peacefully enjoying their existence, only to realize they posed no threat. In contrast, another player found humor in dispatching a monko, the very creature that would have offered him an upgrade if he had paused to understand its request. These events repeat frequently during the game, and as you advance, you become a more skilled killer. Challenges will push players to take down massive, seemingly unbeatable creatures, while moments of boredom will drive them to eliminate countless defenseless ones. The harsh truth hits when you log back into the game, expecting everything to be in order only to discover a devastated landscape. Even though the destruction in the game is unavoidable, the story will guide the player to discover that there is something more significant than their individual selves and social roles, prompting them to reflect on the true meaning of home. As someone who frequently explores the intersection of the physical and digital worlds in your work, how do you see the relationship between these two spaces within the game, especially as it pertains to the health of the environment? His response, "The reality we cherish waking up to is essentially a physical video game. We've even established rules to prevent us from wreaking havoc like we might in a cybernetic environment. Stepping into a digital world lets us set our own rules, and in many games, morality fades away because there's no real consequence for death. Just think about it. If every time you ran over an NPC in Grand Theft Auto they never came back, players would quickly learn to be more cautious, as there would be no game in an empty world." The ability to bring a hypothesis to life without facing consequences is another aspect I enjoy exploring in games and my digital art. Crafting mental worlds allows me to broaden my existence and gives me the joy of experiencing moments in time and space that would be impossible to achieve with traditional tools like a book, a performance, or a sculpture. The game's environment is full of unknown creatures and mysterious entities. How do these creatures and the way they interact with the player mirror the unpredictable and sometimes misunderstood aspects of natural ecosystems? He replied, "The creatures in White Anastasis are designed to be unfamiliar to players and do not conform to typical appearances. This concept mirrors a fascinating aspect of our real world. For instance, the most beautiful and seemingly harmless octopus can kill 8 adults with just one sting. Similarly, in White, players may encounter the adorable yet lethal Krabobo. This creates a constant tension, as players must always wonder whether the creature they just discovered will pose a threat or simply ignore them. The significance of balance is evident in the game. Removing one species can lead to the decline of another. Players have the option to spare all creatures or eliminate them all. Neither choice impacts the game's progression. I've deliberately made all creature battles optional. However, the instinctual nature of humans as hunters is essential, and this is a key element of the game. You've mentioned before that your art invites the viewer to engage in an investigation rather than offering objective truths. In White Anastasis, how does this idea of investigation manifest in the player's experience of the game world, and how do they uncover truths about the environment and themselves? A key aspect of the game is exploration. Players start in a tutorial area but are encouraged to uncover the game on their own. Every action they take leads to a consequence. Grasping and experiencing these changes forges a connection between the player and their surroundings. The narrative unfolds not through direct storytelling but through the outcomes of the player's choices. investigation is crucial and unavoidable, fostering a sense of personal engagement rather than simply following a set of instructions. The game's ultimate aim is to establish a universal language that resonates with people worldwide, which calls for us to engage our creativity and empathy. Saving a Dorit from a trap because it makes distress calls is hundreds of times more valuable than a text instructing you to save it because you have to. The game is set in a future where humanity is struggling to preserve the environment. How does White Anastasis reflect your own personal concerns or hopes about the future of our planet, and what kind of response do you hope to evoke in players regarding their role in protecting the environment? He replied, I envision a future where we can enjoy a bath in the Hudson River at the Thompson Island pool area. A future where the ice sheets of Antarctica and Greenland have regained their former strength. However, if we don't address political corruption and focus our efforts on transitioning to clean energy solutions, we are not only destined to endure our current struggles, but also to face an even more devastating future filled with suffering and displacement for countless humans and other animals. In the game, I deliberately use sarcasm to refer to the white industries as a clean energy solution, while in reality they cause destruction to the Paraverse to sustain themselves. If we are to be honest, many of our current problems related to pollution, destruction, and corruption stem from the colonial era, when the great empires of Europe and Asia established the foundations of industrialization driven by disregard for human life and sheer greed. The current environmental destruction has brought us to a point of no return. This reality is made visible in the narrative of the game. The question that remains is what do we do when we realize that we have individually played a key role in the destruction of our home and the home of others? As White Anastasis is still in development, how have early interactions with players or testers influenced your view on how the game's themes of environmental reflection and destruction resonate with audiences? What have you learned so far about how people engage with these themes in a virtual space? As a production model, I have created a Discord server for playtesters that have been testing the game and sharing their feedback. It is a very vibrant and diverse community that has shown me how much we can nourish our environmental conscience and make ourselves better through communication and gaming instead of guilt trips and finger pointing. I'm surprised to see so many people taking pleasure in the damage they inflict on the Paraverse's environment. This seems to be largely because the permadeath feature for the environment isn't implemented yet. But in any case, we want the player to feel exactly as their mentality and heart would without punishment or restrictions. In the game, we are focused on the experience of facing extinction rather than trying to prevent it. I will definitely be making adjustments to the game based on player feedback to strike a balance between having fun and being emotionally impacted. Is there anything else you'd like to share about your process, intentions, or hope for the game in the future? The floor is yours. Petros replied, I want to express my gratitude to everyone who has supported me and to my small team of interns who have contributed significantly to the project's progress and visibility. I'm excited to share more about White Anastasis with the world. I dedicate all my free time to creating an incredible experience, which leaves me with little time for promoting the game. If you're interested, please consider adding it to your wishlist on Steam and sharing it with your friends and family. I would like to extend a heartfelt thank you to Petros Lales for his time and incredibly thoughtful responses. White Anastasis is planned to release on Steam in September of 2025. So let's reflect. In White Anastasis, you're thrown into a world where destruction and survival are closely tied, and your choices have real consequences on the environment. The game really digs into how sometimes we destroy in order to rebuild, but at what cost? What do you think? Do you ever find yourself making tough choices in games that reflect real-world issues, like balancing progress with the environment? How do you approach these situations when it's all about survival, even if it means sacrificing something else? And what do you think about this game in general? Are you excited to check it out? I know I certainly am. Join me next time where we'll be sitting down with Duck and Run Games to discuss their upcoming Light of Atlantis. Until we meet again, please feel so very free to like, subscribe, and share. And as always, thank you so much for being a part of this little ecosystem. Please waitlist White Anastasis on Steam. Thank you.